What's up, y'all? I'm Tajji. Welcome to Social Perspective, the first of many roundtable discussions. This is Deb. We got Alias, Ericka, Cherise.
Yes, so I just want to set a disclaimer for perspective before we get into our topics for today. Just to kind of touch base on what perspective can mean and where it comes from. And as we know, how we speak and our ideas and our philosophies and everything that we've come to at this point in our lives are based through our experiences, which change over time. In this world of cancel culture, I think it's really important to kind of address this and say, hey, something I say today may be from an experience that could change tomorrow, and my opinions can change. And everyone's speaking from a space of where they are in their lives on that moment based on the topic. So I just hope we can respect that and everyone can understand that, and we can really open ourselves up to new ideas and hearing what other people, how they form their opinions thus far.
Absolutely. All right, perfect. With that being said, the first topic we're going to cover is how do you guys feel about being in a relationship, marriage, situationship, where one partner makes more money than the other? We'll start with you, Eric.
Okay. So I've definitely been in relationships where I have been the breadwinner, and I've been in relationships where I have been a kept woman, wanted to keep me in the house barefoot, cooking, and not really have any opinions or not really have any freedoms. And for a while, when I was in my 20s, like, it was great. And then after a while, I didn't like it. And then I've been in relationships where my situation lost his job, went from millionaire to a zeronaire. And I was, making sure that all the food was on the table, and I took on the burden of all of that. And man, I don't know if I could ever do that again. I didn't know I was capable of doing that. But now that I've done it, I can check that box, and I don't think I ever want to do it again. But not feeling like I have freedom is something I'll never give up again. So if I end up with somebody who makes a lot more money than me, as long as I have my freedoms, I'm okay with it. But I can never, ever sacrifice that again.
Well, was he a kept man?
No, he was a cheating man.
Yee.
And so that was even harder for me, but I felt sorry for the guy. And so he didn't have a job at the time. There was nowhere for him to go. So it was kind of like, what do you do? I was still in love with him, still in love with his child. What do you do? He couldn't even leave the state. So he couldn't go back to his mama's house. There was nothing I could have done. So eventually once his rights were reinstated, then he was out and I was done. But I will never do it again. I did it out of love, but I will never do it again.
I feel that when that situation is that, where the woman is the breadwinner, I feel like we see infidelity a lot from the man in
It
those
hurts his
situations.
pride. A lot of men have
Yes,
pride.
that there's something there that, not that that's the case all the time, but I feel like women fall into the non-breadwinner role much easier of being kept and staying at home and being okay with that. Although I feel like that could stir up some infidelity too.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I could ever do it again. He doesn't have to make more money than me, but I can't support another man again unless we're 10 years married and something unfortunate happens. That's different. But I could never date a guy that completely needs to depend on me again. I could never do it.
And let me not speak from that. Gentlemen, please, is that a valid statement that a man in this society may feel maybe seeking some sort of validation because of that? Because I don't want to speak for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel no kind of way about it, really. To me, I feel like it's more a matter of just having understanding.
And
right?
respect.
Yeah, it's a matter of understanding and respect. Because I feel like once you have the understanding, then the respect naturally evolves into a space of like, all right, you know what? I'm responsible for this. You're responsible for that. We're a team here. Yeah, when you're in a partnership, you're not competing with your partner. I feel like oftentimes, like, we live in an era right now where everything kind of feels like this. It feels like a competition. It's like, or it's ego driven. Like, if you really love a person, like, you'll remove your ego out of that. You won't allow your ego to drive where the relationship goes. It's like, because really at the end of the day, it's gonna lead you to a cliff, and that car is falling off. Like, then you got nothing.
I love to see a situation where it's a partnership, and if it's like, hey, at this point, that's how my marriage started. I was at a certain point, he's younger, So I was in that position, and then he came and took that position, and it really didn't matter. It was like, hey, well, while I'm here, these are the roles and responsibilities that you need to contribute.
Yeah.
And all in all, I would like to see society, if women are screaming for greater pay, then we shouldn't be feeling some kind of way about a man helping out more at the home, raising the kids. I have friends that are in that marriage right now, and I respect it, but I know a lot of people look down on it.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is, like, a lot of people don't realize that we're living in an era right now where there's a shift socially that's taking place that's moving away from tradition. So it's like, guys, it's like, oh, if you're the breadwinner, then you're supposed to be the provider. But on the same token, women are like, look, hear me roar. Like, I should be able to move and do any and everything that you do the same way that you do. And by all means, I want you to have that. I'm not here to take nothing away from no woman. Like, I want you to have that. But I think that's why it's about the understanding. And firstly, the communication has to be there, because if you're not communicating that, you're never going to get to that point. Like, that's, relationships are based on the health, right? If it's in bad health and you're not doing, contributing to the elements that create a healthy relationship, it's doomed to fail. It's going to die.
What happens if you're in love with someone and it's 50-50 and this person loses their job and can't seem to find employment? Now it's, do you leave them or do you stick it out? How long do you stick?
That's for thick and thin,
That's position.
right?
Well, you're not married. I'm not saying you're married.
I was going to ask if it's
Right,
married.
What if
right,
something
right.
happens? Life happens, and this is what happened in my situation.
I think it just depends on the situation, right? I feel like, obviously, if you love a person, you're naturally by default gonna want to see it through with that person. Like,
But how long is too long where they're not contributing?
Right, but I think
They're not making the effort, I feel, in my opinion. If they're
yeah,
not
they're
making
not
the
making
effort,
Yeah, you got it.
to be up
You
there.
got complacent, and that's what ended it for me.
For sure.
Well,
So
understandable.
complacency is a disease in any situation, really. Like a relationship, business, whatever. The minute you get complacent, then that means productivity has stopped. Like, when the productivity is no longer there, then it's like, what are you here for?
Well, there was also
Like,
depression from losing that job and feeling like he's less than.
Absolutely.
And then it's just like a rabbit hole.
That's extra work on top of that, because then now you got to emotionally support them.
But it's what you said, moving away from tradition. So we're gonna go through this period as a society, right? As we move into women coming more into power, we're gonna go through this traditional built-in, probably even in the DNA of like the hunter and gatherer and like the man. And so I don't think it's an easy situation for men. You'd have to be at a certain enlightened level to be like, this is a partnership and this is my role and this
Also
is what's
depends on
happening.
their maturity.
The maturity, right? And that's the maturity level,
Enlightenment,
right? For you to break away from, cultural, what your culture says about what a man's supposed to do. Like, there's going to be this really uncomfortable period, I feel, for the next
childhood.
decade.
It's over pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, them days are
But
over because it's
holding on to that machismo of like, hey, let's just get into balance of like, this is my partner, and what's your strength, what's your weakness,
That's it.
and let's build. But it's gonna take a minute. It's gonna be a lot of discomfort. It's gonna be a lot of invalidation of men feeling like, because how are men gonna support other men in that role?
Right.
Of like saying, hey, bro, that's okay that you're
yeah.
the house husband, right? That you're raising the kids, you're taking them to school. Like, it's a beautiful thing. Men would have to support that.
So, real quick, what she was saying about like her man coming to cheat, what it comes down to, he's probably insecure in the relationship already because he's not making as much.
Exactly right.
And so insecurity is going to bring on faults. It's going to bring on, I'm not worthy. So if I do step out, what does it matter, because I'm not even significant to even be in this relationship. That's how they look at it. If they look at it as being immature, and they're going to act immature.
That's exactly what our therapist said.
And so and that's just a default for a lot of men, because, and depending on the shade of skin, like black men weren't able to get taught this. They didn't have the fathers or the uncles to pull them aside and say, hey, you're messing up right now. And so their upbringing is a lot different than most men, because the struggles that they have to go through and put through, most of the things that men do in a relationship, or what they know. And what they know is and so if
What
they
they
don't
are,
have a father in
right.
a relationship, father at home, they're going to be like, okay, it's okay to be a father that's not in the same home. It's okay to cheat. My dad cheated. It's okay.
And I turned out okay, so my kids will be okay.
Yeah, so it's a cycle that we keep on living in until somebody realizes they need to break the cycle. But in your case, if the man was already insecure on making less or having to be the stay-at-home dad or stay-at-home guy and let his woman make more money than him, he's already insecure guy. So it's not an issue of like the money wise. You need to
It stems
break the
from
insecurity.
generational trauma.
That too. His career was his identity. That was it. Once that was taken away from him, he didn't know who he was. And so the cheating was like, well, damn, can I even still get, he was a multimillionaire, lost everything. Damn, can I even still get girls? It was more of an ego-driven thing than it had
Like
anything, it had
most
nothing to do
times.
with me, and I never took it personally, but there was a lot of therapy involved for me to get to that point.
Well, the ego is the thing that we're taught as males. We're taught from the movies we watch. You have to be the strongest, the fastest, the best. Why do we like nice cars?
Show no
Women
emotion.
women like nice cars. Why do we want
Don't
money? Because
cry.
women like don't cry. All these things. She listens to a lot of podcasts. I can tell. The same
I know
podcast
a lot
I
of
listen
therapy.
to.
What is
But I'm
vulnerability?
saying these are the things that we're not taught as men, and we don't know. So the things that we have to learn from, we have to look around our society and look around our environment and see what we know. So if I can't turn to my strong father, who am I going to turn to? I'm going to turn to BET. And what are they showing me? Hey, that's Wives of Atlanta. You know, look at, you could just be rich and have these women just chilling, doing things. You could run off and do whatever you want. We're getting taught these things by the media and society saying this is okay to live. And like, it's not okay. And we're not understanding to separate, hey, somebody needs to say, hey, you guys need some help, or you need therapy, or you need something. But we're not equipped with the education, the proper guidance that we need growing up. So
Yeah, 'cause
therefore
right
we
now
act in the same.
therapy is labeled weakness.
Right. In communities of color, that's how it, you know,
Particularly.
it's changing. I feel like in the last
It is.
year and since
It is.
COVID,
It's
it's
evolving.
really, it's evolving. But I want to touch on the generational trauma and the black male thing, because I feel like historically, in the 60s, you know, we know that a lot of black men were out of work, and we know that it was set up in a way where black women were going and they were working these jobs and they were the ones providing. And I feel like that's the start of the issues of the nucleus of the family, like disempowering the male, right?
Yeah, emasculating,
Right,
yeah.
emasculating society was, right? And then, you know, the woman stepping up, and not that this was just in black communities, but I know historically that experience of the black males and them kind of being stripped of work and creating this power struggle that split up tons of families. So if we could get into like generational trauma of like, because that's what I'm saying we're gonna have to undo over the next 10 years, dealing with ego and combating what you know and what you learn and what you've seen, to say, hey, can I sit back and take a nurturing role? Will it even sit in your generational trauma? Because you're gonna fight that.
Right. But I think the other thing, even as men, as this shift starts to occur, you know, it's like, okay, you go to therapy, like that's becoming more of a conversation, right? But then it's also just about the what do you call it, like the vulnerability factor, right? Like a man, depending on the woman that you're dealing with, you may not feel like you even have the platform to be able to be vulnerable with them, because they may be so independent and alpha female that it's like it's literally robbing the man of the opportunity to be the man. Like even though it's like, what is the man? But it's like he's not being a man. He's not able to be a man because he's getting robbed of that.
Or
I
her
love
perception
that,
of
yeah.
a man.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
I love that, because I feel like I struggled with that. Being raised as an independent woman in my own journey, I had to see that in myself, right? Of where I created that feeling. And not intentionally, right? Like as women shift into power, it's not that we are intentionally trying to be malicious or emasculate men, but as we fight and struggle in that world, it comes off in that way of really not seeming like a safe space for men to be vulnerable, right? And so with time in my own relationship, that has come with time, and I've realized to soften in that area as I try to balance, like, well, I want to push forward and I want to boss up and I want to do that too, but I also embrace the femininity and the nurturing, and I want you to be able to come to me and I want you to be able to be vulnerable without that like struggle inside myself. So that's like a really good point. I think the women, we have work to do too. I'm always gonna say, men, y'all got a lot of catching up to do, you know, but to balance that out, I'm like, women, as we move on that path to balance things, I feel like we are going to have to create a space where the men can be more vulnerable and really feel safe to tell us without us being defensive.
Right, for sure. I think it ends up being like this, there's this ping pong effect, you know, as the shift occurs, men are becoming, you know, they're looking more into themselves. They're like, oh, okay, you know, I'm feeling these certain kind of ways. Like, I want to be able to express that but it has to be received well. Because otherwise it's like, if they don't feel like the safe space is there, they're not going to come out of it same way as a woman won't. Like, we naturally, society standards, like, oh, women are more emo than men and da-da-da.
Yeah, I don't agree.
really
I don't
believe
think so.
that.
All humans are
I don't-
emo.
we
That's
all
a human
feel the
experience is
same level of
emotions.
I think a lot of
Like,
boys are raised, their dads and their family saying, boys don't cry, boys don't do this, toughen up, like suck it up, be a man. And then when they get to a woman who can give you a safe place to express, you might not know how to do that because you weren't
absolutely.
raised that way.
We're also not equipped to receive it. Although we're nurturing, we expect to see them hold a certain standard too. And I feel like that's a lot, this discussion of like finances, there are ideas that we're gonna have to break too, of men being the providers and
Like there's no room to cry. There's no room, but we got to break out of that.
we're
cycle.
going to have to like, we're brainwashed too to see that as weakness in men. And so we're going to have to work on that in ourselves too, of like, hey, like how can we allow them, how can we still see the masculine, right? And not equate masculinity to emotions and crying and vulnerability, but we're all programmed that way.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's definitely a journey that man and woman alike have to do that together. Because if you have one that does not, and they're not willing to accept, or they're not able to look within and feel like, or realize that they're short on that, it's going nowhere.
That's my journey, you know, because I was kind of like, it's the men, you know, we've been here, we the backbone.
It's easy to do that, right?
Right, you know,
Yeah.
and then taking that look at myself and be like, hey, like how am I contributing to this, or how can I participate in that revolution for men, right? Like how can I adjust, how can I be in a place of discomfort, because it's going to be discomfort for us because of what we've been, the movies that we saw, and we heard the same messaging, boys don't cry, I'm raising a son, you know, but luckily I got to this path before that where I would never tell my son, don't cry. You know, I might cry it out, son, scream it out, whatever emotion is coming up and you're
Express
feeling
it,
like,
right.
I'm so lucky. I prayed for a social experiment of a boy and a girl, right? So I could like try to give these equal conditions and see if I would not raise my kids with a gender bias. It's difficult, you know, and the programming that they're receiving outside of me, you don't even realize like how YouTube and how every TV show is
It's
telling
going
them
against
gender
everything
roles.
that you're saying at home.
It's teaching them
Yeah.
gender roles, right? Because they're
Yeah.
having ideas that I'm like, at 6 and 8 that I'm like, I don't teach this. I'm a very on the spectrum type human, so I'm not teaching you gender roles. It is embedded in this society.
You look at, like watching TV, just for instance, if you watch a cartoon, the man is drawn all nice and big and the woman's all frail. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, the formula was, you know, the woman has to be saved. It's through the media that we're being taught these things, and that for a long time it's always been that way, since women were tied on the train tracks and a man had to come and rescue her. It's those ideas that are embedded in our children, and if we don't realize that and try to change that, like you said, with your children, you want to see what it's going to be if you didn't have that or have that influence on them. But yeah, YouTube and TV and media and social media, all those things, because for one, I have a 13-year-old and she's like, yo, I need likes. I'm like, no, you don't. But that's the idea that she has in the society we're brought up in, that and she's like, if I get likes, I get this, I get the guy to come and save me and give me this, give me that, and I don't have to do nothing for my life, because now life is good. But we need to stop that and teach them, like, yo, pull them aside. That's not how this works, you know. So until we need more parents like you to be able to say, hey, look, stop and look and explain to them what exactly it is. Like, yeah, tell your son, say, go outside and scream. Don't do it in the house. Go outside and scream as all you want.
Right,
Get
I
it,
might
get it
cry,
out.
but I just don't want to hear it. So, because I'm not in a crying mood. So you can cry, but just take it. But he has these ideas of like, when I have a wife, I don't really want to cook and do these things, and that's not the dynamic in our household. So I'm like, well, what are you going to contribute? And he was like, well, I'm going to buy her a nice ring and nice things. And I'm like, I don't want to have a reaction with my children with their own ideas, but I'm curious, where is this coming from? Dad cooks all the time. I make money, son. I have to repeat this to him constantly. Like, hey, I make money. I know it doesn't look like I work, but he has this idea of like, I will pay for things and my wife will take care of everything else. And I don't even know where this programming comes from.
What's embedded? It's old fashioned. It's embedded into our.
It's embedded
history,
in us,
history.
right.
Yeah.
That's why I said we're all trying to crack this code and break it. When we do, it's going to be a beautiful. When all of humanity cracks these boxes and the code, man, and we can just live a little more free, it will be a beautiful thing. I just don't know the timing on that.
Yeah, it's a long road ahead. That's how I feel about it. I mean, I feel like it'll happen because it's happening.
It's happening.
Right, but it's like what is that destination? What does that end road look like? I
feel like it's our children's children, maybe, right? Because we're still carrying in our DNA the roles, the gender roles, right? Things look different, and it's a discussion. It's a discussion in this generation right now, who can make more money. So we know that it's in us. And then our kids, we're gonna try to tell them, hey, it doesn't matter, right? Just have a partnership. I hope all marriages become agreements and partnerships. And you sit down in the beginning, you say, hey, what do you bring to the table? What are your weaknesses? Are we yoked to match each other's weaknesses? And you build empires from that space instead of I'm man, I do this, you're woman, you do this.
Well, I want to ask a question to the women. Does it really matter financially what your man makes?
It does. And I'm going to say, just because, like the situation I was in, you have to have a job. So it matters to me if you make something or nothing. You don't have to make more than me, but you have to. Now, if I had children and he was a stay-at-home dad, it'd be different, but I don't have children. So if we're living in the same house and I'm the only one contributing to the bills, that's a problem for me because of the situation. Now, before that situation, I might not have had an opinion, but now I do because I've been there and lived it. Like,
what would you
I need
want
help.
him to do? What would make that okay for you to make the money and him not? What
I
do you
mean,
need?
I would need my house in order. I would need meals on the table every night. I would need something to contribute to. If I'm making all the money, I don't want to come home and cook my own dinner. Now that sounds totally opposite of where you grew up listening to, but I don't want to do all of it. So if I'm doing this much, then what can you do?
It's not that opposite because the guys feel the same way. I don't want to stay at home, at work all day and come home and not have dinner.
It's one or the other. I feel like if I in between jobs and he's bringing home, I'm making sure that his hot food, his drawers are clean, he's good sex, like all of it. I'm
So
making sure
do
he
you have
doesn't
that discussion?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Now each relationship I've been in has been totally different. Every single one, no two have been the same. But I haven't been married before, but I've been in maybe 3 long-term relationships, and I was a kept woman, and then I was the one keeping, and then the other one was kind of 50-50. And none of them worked. I'm still single. So but it has nothing to do with, doesn't really have anything to do with how much money we make. But if I'm making all the money, I definitely want him to do something that makes me feel like I'm not doing it by myself.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at the
Wait,
end of the day, sorry,
No,
just
you're
really
fine.
quick. I don't feel like anybody should be in a relationship and they feel like they're by themselves. Like that, like my whole theory in life is like, you can do bad by yourself. Like, why would you have somebody else in the mix with you and still be doing bad? Like
Right,
you're
and it's
doing,
not 1 plus
now you're
1
doing
equal
worse.
2.
Right.
I don't
Now
ever
you're
want to
doing
feel like a
worse.
burden, and I don't want my man to feel like a burden to me.
Yeah.
I don't
no,
want to
that's-
sit in my car in the driveway and be like, damn, I don't want to go in this house right now.
Yeah, that's,
You know what I
and
mean?
people do that. People do that all
And that's
the
my
time.
biggest fear.
Yeah.
And now I grew up in a household, my parents are still married. I grew up in a very structural, I saw it work. Yet I'm 46 next week and I'm still not married because it's so important for me to find something that works. Not just, I don't need to be married. I don't have to say I'm married. I'm happier now than I have ever been single. So until I find something that fits me perfectly, whether he makes more or whether I make more, it doesn't make a difference. It's the agreement and the mutual respect for each other.
Right, and that's my opinion on this thing. As long as the respect is there and we're both contributing to the relationship, not contributing to our bills, to our household, to anything else. We're contributing to our relationship. I don't care if it's sweeping, washing dishes, something. Let me know that we're a team.
You want to feel appreciated, and he wants to feel. I want to feel appreciated, and I
Exactly.
want to have someone that I can appreciate as well.
Exactly. Because then your respect and the love just grows and grows from there.
I love that we started that way. That I'm 6.5 years older, so it wasn't even like, hey, I'm making more. It was like, I'm at a different point. He was just out of college, you know? And so, and he had a dream, he vocalized it, I believed in it with conviction. Like, hey, well, yes, I will hold this household down, and probably in my mind, antiquated thoughts, right? Because this is 11 years ago of like, okay, well, it can't be this way forever, you know, but being okay supporting the household and letting him chase his dreams, and it motivating him and encourage him, and then him being in a position where he makes more, and it just being like that, and it feels beautiful. But it was early on a decision of like, I do think he needs to be in a position where he makes more for his own pride and motivation. But his culture, he comes from, you know, I took into consideration his culture and what that looked like to the people he was around and his family. But at this stage, it's like, it literally is a partnership of, hey, we are pouring into this bucket. It don't matter who pour what, as long as it's getting filled.
Yeah.
Right? And if
Right,
there's
right.
moments of, because I don't like being a kept woman. I don't want to stay home. I don't want to do all the
Some women do.
housework. I'm not
That doesn't
looking.
work
I'm
for
not
you guys.
looking for that.
That
I'm not
doesn't
looking
work-
for like,
that's-
hey, pay all my
that doesn't
bills
work
and
for your
I'll serve
relationship.
you.
Some women are looking for that, and some men are looking to keep a woman. A lot of cultural differences too.
Right. I just want I want the partnership. Hey, I will contribute, and I will definitely do household stuff, and I cook and I clean and I do all of those things. But I don't feel personally I could be in a position where I made no money. It doesn't feel good, and that's why I wonder for men, like as a human, it doesn't feel good to like produce that way. Like I want to contribute something. It's for my own ego.
A lot of men want to make them. They want to keep. They want control. They want control.
Yeah, but with that being said,
Not every
does
man.
that, sure, but like control, it's like, but what woman, like you mentioned earlier, it's like what woman really wants to be controlled
Some
because
don't.
the man has that money?
They just want it to be. They just want a free place to, not a free place to live, but they want a comfortable life. Some women are lazy. Some women want to
they
just.
have no ambition.
They just want to go to.
Right.
Can't be
They want to
lazy.
go to
If you're
Pilates
cooking
and
and cleaning
shop.
and doing that is not lazy.
There are
Because
a
let me
lot of-
tell you, housework.
Right, but if
No,
they
no,
don't
no,
do
they
none
don't
of
have to
that,
be
if they do
housework.
none.
There are women out there
Right,
that are
that's
looking
a
for sugar
mess.
daddies.
That's
that are
exactly
looking for
what it
sugar
is.
daddies. They're looking
You're
for a
not
man to
trying
take
to
care of
take care of
everything.
nothing.
There are
Yeah.
lots of women out there that have nannies and housekeepers. They just go to Pilates and then go shopping all day. There are a lot of women looking for that life.
You know what those situations are though, and those men do have several. That's a several women
A lot of these
situation.
women don't
Most
care.
of the time it is.
That is
They
like
want a
the marriage is
comfortable
a
life.
show. That is a different partnership. That's, hey, I want you
That's
here
not
in
even
this
a partnership.
It's a
that does
arrangement.
work
It's
for
an
some people.
arrangement.
If
It's
the
an
guy wants that, the girl
arrangement,
wants
yeah.
that, boom, it's a match made in heaven. A lot of these girls were also daddy's girls, driving daddy's BMW, carrying the Yorkie in their Louis bag. Like, and they're looking for someone because that's what their mom and dad were like. So now it's just, they're looking for the same thing, and they probably got matched. They probably met at Yale, and you know what I mean. And now she's at home, taking Pilates and watching whatever, and he's at the law firm.
Do those women
That works
cheat?
for some people.
Do those
Some of them do.
Because if the man is sitting there feeling invalidated, are there women who? Okay, I actually know that there are women that do this,
For
and I have
sure.
some they're very close in my
They're
life
having
that
sex
were
with their
stay-at-home
trainers.
moms.
They're having sex with their
They be
trainers
on
or the
something.
neighbor.
They be on one.
Or the
Them
stay-at-home dad
moms
next
that
door.
and they cook. They cook
The
all the
full meal.
meals. They do all the cleaning. They are amazing. They show up at the school at all the events. They are amazing caretakers of the children, and they in them streets
Yes,
Yeah, I know
acting
they out there.
up.
a lot of open marriages
Right?
too.
Because I feel like all people need to feel
A
some
lot
like
of
validation
been married
in
10
life
years,
of
and they're like, they want to
contribution.
spice it up. Next thing you know, you got a hot wife.
Real quick, that's what it is. It's about validation.
It's about
It's about
ego. We all
validation,
dealing with ego.
and we're all dealing with it. But when somebody cheats, something's not right. It's not just, hey, I want all these. A lot of people think like men just cheat just because that's in their DNA. No, something's not right. Period. Whoever you're with, if you love somebody, you gotta recognize love means you wouldn't do anything to hurt them. And if you go out and cheat, you know that's gonna hurt them. So why would you do it? You obviously don't love that person.
See, this is a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Because like
Well,
cheating and the motivations behind it.
A lot of people don't know that, but what I'm saying is like, you know, something's not right if you're going to step out on your significant other.
million different reasons why someone will cheat.
And for that reason, you just like anything, you got to get to the root of the problem and say, hey, why do you feel the need to feel the way you do to go do this? You know, and so with cheating, you have to have those questions, or you have to have those conversations with your significant other to say, hey, why are you doing this? Most of the time, women know.
A lot of time guys don't know why they're doing it. It's an
True.
inner child ego
100%
issue.
true. There's some things that they don't know about themselves, because like men, like it took me a while, 42, till I realized who I was. You know,
Or are we not monogamous creatures?
Podcast.
You
Right.
know,
That's
you know,
what I'm like,
there's
that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
Or are we just not built for it? Are we not just built for monogamy?
I think.
And we discipline ourselves to do it because
We're the
love and
only
we
creatures
want-
on Earth that pretend like monogamous.
no ducks. I think there's a species of ducks.
Spider
They
monkeys,
be-
I don't know.
it's a couple of them. They be with the same little other animal for life. But we need
Every
to.
other species is whatever's clever, and then us, we're like, oh no, we got to get married and.
I just feel like cheating's so prevalent that it's like, are we fighting something that is just unnatural?
Gotcha.
Are we fighting something that's unnatural? Because why is it so common? Why is it take place so much? Like, we will definitely, I would love
We got to
to-
cover that.
I
We got to
would-
cover
I
that.
would love-
We'll cover that on the
that's
next one.
exciting
Yeah.
to me.